Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mio MMA podcast, talking about UFC 307 from Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, and the what is the name? You'd think I would remember the name after hearing it so many times the other night, but I don't. The Delta Center. There you go. I assume named after the airlines. So we got through with UFC 307, and prediction wise, did pretty poorly in terms of the win loss. Let's see here. I got 1 win, 2 wins, 3 wins, 4 wins, 5, 6. You know what? I went 6-6. Actually, for some reason, I thought I had a losing record, and to be honest, I think I should have done better. I think it's because I started the night 0-3, but I think I should have done better because I honestly do believe that Raquel Pennington and Jose Aldo won, and they were kind of. I don't want to say Pennington was robbed. I in the immediate aftermath, I did think so. I was cussing up a storm over on social media. I was very, very unhappy. I took the time to go back and rewatch the first round of the fight, and I've come to the conclusion that I do understand how Pena would have won rounds 1, 2, and 3. But I also do stand that I think she only definitively won round 3. So I'm still unhappy about the decision, but I do not classify it as a robbery anymore. I will say, and we'll get more into it with Bautista when we get to Bautista Aldo, I do think that that is a straight up robbery. I honestly do. I am sorry to Mario Bautista, who I'm a big fan of, and I'm hoping becomes very, very good. But I do believe that the 2 cards that he won on this night were straight up just wrong. Just wrong. Because he won the 3rd round on Derek Cleary and Michael Bell's scorecard, and I do not think he should have. But we'll get more into that. So I do think that those fights probably should have gone a different way. But otherwise, I think I also still had the vibe of both of those fights relatively correct, and I think I largely handled that pretty well. So let's talk about this. This card had pretty low expectations coming into it. There were a lot of like weird fights here. Don't get me wrong, a lot of relevancy, a lot of things to talk about going forward, a lot of things that impact the UFC going forward. All of those things are on the table. But what I did find just kind of like unappealing about this card was that I don't know, there was just something about most of the fights anyways that I was like, I don't think this is the fight that should be happening, or this is not a particularly exciting combination of fighters. These are 2 fighters I respect and I think are very valuable and whatever, but the combination is just a little bit off. And also, I thought that like you're doing the altitude card in Utah, and it's just a little bit weird that there were a lot of older fighters on the card. I've kind of always said this. I think just think it's a bad idea. Like you had 37-year-old, 34-year-old, 36, 35, 38. That's Aldo. And then like you have 36-year-old Roman Dolidze. You have I'm using 35 as kind of my old barometer. 41-year-old Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, 37-year-old Marina Rodriguez. Going further on down here, 36-year-old Cesar Almeida, 41-year-old Ovan St. Preux, 36-year-old Carla Esparza versus 35-year-old Tisha Pennington in Esparza's retirement fight. Always feels weird doing those at altitude. 40-year-old Tim Means, 39-year-old Court McGee. You get what I'm going on. There's like a lot of like fighters who are on, at the very least, the downturn of their career. And it feels really kind of silly putting them at altitude. But you know what? I don't think the altitude really adversely impacted most of those fights. Most of those fighters I just listed. There are, I think, some elements here of, altitude playing a role, but I don't think it actually particularly took out the older fighters on the cards. At least there's that. Alex Pereira versus Khalil Rountree, the main event. This kind of saved the card because it was a very good fight. Rountree was more competitive than I think anyone really expected coming in. I think there were a lot of people who had him up 2-0 after 2. I did not. I will say that clearly. I thought Pereira won the first round. He landed more strikes. And I mean, if you're going to get outlanded by Pereira and you're not going to knock him down or anything, I think he has to win the round. I think that just is the assumption. Like there's too much like proven power invisible reaction when Pereira hits someone to be like, you know what? You got outlanded by 5 strikes, but like you totally won that round. I don't think that's really on the table. And it was 15-10. Rountree was having a really real hard time going 10 for 42. Ended up 31% accuracy. Really was kind of like coming up short on a lot of punches. So I don't know what people were seeing that gave the first round to Rountree, but apparently there was something. Second round, I have no problem. He drops someone when Pereira goes for that kick and just like awkwardly misses, ends up getting dropped for a moment, gets right back up, but like, obvious big damage and the head kick at the end of the round, it's there. And then the third round, this is when Pereira just starts to kind of take over. Because, like, up until this point, he was outlanding him, but he wasn't really going hard. It was like, he'd landed 33 strikes between the first 2 rounds. Landed 31 in the third round alone. This is when he just starts to walk him down, starts to actually find his groove, starts to put together pieces of offense as opposed to just, like, shutting down Rountree's blitzes a little bit. And then in the fourth round here, nothing fancy from Pereira. Just, I'm going to low kick you. I'm going to jab you. And eventually, your eye is going to start to swell up. Your leg is going to start to be gimpy. And you're going to get caught up against the fence. That is what happened. And Pereira, like, blasts him with accurate punches and knees. Hurts him with a left hook pretty badly. Swarming him. Rountree's throwing back and everything. Showing toughness. Showing heart. Showing the grit and determination of a warrior. But eventually Pereira's just like, all right, well, what if I start like just, rib roasting you? And Rountree goes down. Referee stops the fight. Alex Pereira, still your champion. Again, a fight that was pretty exciting on paper and did deliver. So I'm not going to complain about it too much, but I am going to echo the statements that this was kind of a phony title shot. And I'm fine if that's going to be a thing, if we're just going to give hot streaking fighters that moment, whatever. These 2 fighters together will make a pretty cool deal. I had no problem when Pride, for example, had, let's just say, less than sporting justified title shots. So I'm okay with it. But that is what it was. So I didn't really appreciate the people who were trying to paint it as something it wasn't. Who were trying to make it seem like, no, Rountree is actually a title contender, not Ankalaev. Because that was wrong. But it was a fun fight. Rountree acquitted himself very, very well. His stock went up in a loss. Perhaps because I expected him to lose, obviously. He was a sizable underdog. But this was maybe one of his better performances, honestly. Like, he went in there with a really, really good striker. And, he hurt him. He hurt him on the feet. And he didn't let it deter him. Now, I will say that he still needs to figure out a way to like counter low kicks that is just not trying to hit a big counter or trying to kick with them, because that didn't really work out. Now, in fairness, that'll work against a lot of people. It has worked against a lot of people, but at the very, very top of the game, at some point you need to have the footwork, have the defensive acumen to take those away, and he does not. So, anyways, after the fight, Pereira didn't seem to be talking a lot about the 185 idea that people were putting out there, that he goes back to 185 and fights DDP. I think that would be a bad idea. I think that's a death weight cut. Rountree got to have his moment as well, and that was kind of weird. He had like this thing coming out of his nose, and I'm like, I don't know what. I assume it was a blood clot, but I don't honestly want to know what it was that he yanked out of there. Neither said anything that like was particularly interesting. I know Pereira talked about like taking some time off and then coming back around Ramadan. So, and that's like people going like, ducking Ankalaev further, and like it is like, to be clear here, when I use the term ducking, and to be honest, I think this is the case for a lot of people, it's just the statement that you're avoiding a fight. It's not that you're afraid of it or whatever. It's not the fight you want. And it's kind of going to come up later with Pena, because of course she's back to calling out Nunes, and people are like, how can you say she's ducking Harrison? She's calling out a more dangerous opponent. And people do it with like John Jones as well. Yeah, but you have somebody who, by all sporting logic and by the fans, Well, not in Ankalaev's case, not the fans, but like by all sporting logic, this guy should be the next fight. You don't want it. Doesn't mean you're afraid, but you don't want it. And you're looking for something else. That is ducking. So I have Pereira versus Ankalaev is the only fight that makes sense at 205. Some people suggest that DDP could come up. Maybe that works. If Ankalaev loses to Rakic, somehow that would put him out of it, but like it probably wouldn't put Rakic in there. So if you're not going to do Pereira versus Ankalaev, Aspinall, champ. Once John Jones is out of the way and retired, I don't know. Rountree I've got against Jamal Hill or Yuri Prohaska. Either of those are perfectly fine. And there are other ones you could do. I've got the UFC rankings up here right now. 205. Thank you very much. I mean, you could do anything here in the top 10, really. You could do Nikita Krylov. You could do Volkan Oezdemir. You could do Johnny Walker as a rematch if you want. You could do Carlos Ulberg, who's coming up. That'd also work. You could do Azamat Murzakanov. Okay, below that, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in Anthony Smith or Dominic Reyes or Gushkov or Menefield. Yeah, maybe a little interested for Menefield. But there are plenty of options to do a fight night headliner or a co-main on a pay-per-view or something like that. Raquel Pennington versus Juliana Pena. Let's get it out of the way. I still scored this fight for Pennington. I scored 145. Basically, the rounds in which it was a striking affair without takedowns, she won. And arguably, I think she may have actually won the second round. People are going to say, what are you talking about? She was on her back for 3 minutes. Yeah, it was 3 minutes that Pena didn't do anything. And beforehand, she was starting to get kind of lit up a little bit. So, like when you're on top for 3 minutes and you get out and landed in the round, I'm not sure how confident you should be you won that round. That's just me. But like, I have no problem. I scored the second round for her. The third round definitely was for her. Pennington didn't do much at all. Ended up on bottom for 2 minutes, 20 seconds. Ended up getting outstruck. Ended up, submission attempt in there also for Pena. That's perfectly fine. That's obviously her round. Second round, probably her round. And I get it. I rewatched the first round again. Pena does land more. Maybe I'm just completely disregarding her boxing. Maybe that's the case. But like, I still feel that Pennington landed the better shots. And this is a damage-based criteria. I am told. We are told. It is listed. It is pimped out there. And as a result, I think that should be the case. But anyways, round 4, they got the knockdown. Pennington got the knockdown on Pena. Ended up going for a submission for reasons I don't fully understand. I would have had her get up, or at least if you're going to go down to the ground, start throwing some elbows, like drop the bombs. And the fifth round was obviously Pennington's as well. Predominantly a stand-up affair. In fact, entirely a stand-up affair. Outlanded her 35-27. And in general, Pennington looks like, the better boxer of the two because Pena is a terrible striker. Oh my God, so bad. So I'm less angry that Pena ended up getting the win here. I am less swearing and less crazy about the judges that scored this fight in her favor. Looking at you, Sal D'Amato. Looking at you, Mike Bell. You guys still suck. But 1, 2, 3, Pena is not necessarily the worst card in the world. However, what the worst part of this is afterwards is, of course, Pena's out there, number one, trying to duck Harrison for a fight against a retired fighter. Maybe it's just my complete lack of faith that like Nunes is coming back. Because, I guess there is a chance that Nunes would come back, but I don't think Nunes would come back for a trilogy with Pena. I just don't think so. I think at least John Jones and Alex Pereira in their ducking are after fights that I think can actually happen. Pena is after a fight that I have no faith and no confidence can actually happen. Just take the Harrison fight. Stop talking about how I didn't really actually think Harrison looked all that impressive. I'll sort of agree, but like neither did you. You arguably lost to like the least athletic champion in all of UFC history. Like the fact that the fact that Raquel Pennington was a champion in the UFC is honestly one of the weirdest championship runs ever. And it's a very short one. I mean, there are others. There's Matt Serra at 170. There's what else is super weird? Even the Sean Strickland run at 185 is a bit weird, but like they're still better. Like Pennington is a remarkably foot slow fighter without the dynamic, explosive ability, without an ability to really stop takedowns as well. Bad takedown defense paired on top of that, and completely got it pants by Nunes the first time they fought for the title during her first title shot. It's just honestly kind of insane that she got the belt. I guess I still wanted to continue, but like Pena also is a terrible champion. This division is terrible. And for Pennington, I've got Carol Hossa as the next opponent. Now, Aldo versus Bautista, all I'm really going to say about this one, I'm just going to read the stats. And that's kind of really it. At the end of the day, Bautista went over 10 on takedowns. I did give him the first round because, frankly, Aldo was pretty inactive. He was doubled up on strikes. Bautista was able to outvolue him and plus push him to the cage for like 2 minutes. So I was okay with that. And then the second round comes. And again, there's a lot of pushing to the cage. But there was more from Aldo. Like he started to actually unleash and kind of hurt Bautista. And that was the round he won on all 3 judges' scorecards. Boom, we're fine. Great. And in the third round, we end up with like a lot of control again. And still like anytime there was space, Aldo was lighting Bautista up. And the commentary didn't help because they were talking about like how Bautista was clearly winning this on control. Again, control not supposed to be the criteria. It is on the list. Do not get me wrong. If nothing else happens and you just push a guy into the fence for 15 minutes and that guy does nothing, you do win the fight. But that is the only time that should work. Aldo was not doing nothing. He was outstriking Bautista in the clinch. For the most part, he was outstriking mid-range, which, by the way, keep in mind here, it's not like the Merab Dvalishvili fight where like he was literally held to the cage. Don't get me wrong, 7 minutes of control time is good, but it's less than half the fight. So I cannot co-sign this decision. I don't get me wrong, I like Aldo needed to find a way off the fence, and he did not. He did not do that. But Derek Cleary and Michael Bell, you got this wrong. Chris Lee got this right. And that's horrifying. That is, honest to God, horrifying. For Bautista, I got the winner of Font versus Phillips. I got Aldo versus O'Malley because why not? Like, it seems like O'Malley's not going to do anything else. Like, he's not going to step into the actual flow of the division. He's been trying to call for, like, box fights with boxers and, like, dream fights and stuff. So you might as well just do the Aldo fight. That's kind of a dream fight. Let that happen. Let that roll. Further on down the card, we get to Roman Dolidze versus Kevin Holland. Not much to say. This was like a fairly fun and sloppy striking match. Dolidze gets a takedown, hang out in guard. Holland starts to try to scramble, maybe go for an arm bar. Seems to have popped out a rib or broke a rib or something. Gets hit with a lot of ground and pound. He defends okay, but he goes back to the corner. Corner is like, can you continue? And he's not exactly reassuring about the matter. And the corner calls for the stoppage. Love the corner stoppage. Love it. I would say that, like, I want more corner stoppages. I frankly want it more because you're supposed to protect the fighters as a corner. You're supposed to keep, they're not supposed to quit, but you are supposed to protect them when there isn't really anything going. And yeah, rib injuries suck. They are horrible. And having had a couple myself. And yeah, I have no problem with that. And BJJ black belt for Dolidze. Cool, whatever. Give him the winner of Anthony Hernandez versus Michel Pereira. I think he called out the loser or the winner of Chimaev versus Whitaker. You're not getting the winner, and you should never be calling out a loser. I'm just saying. Anyways, Holland, I don't know. He's kind of just punch him in wherever you want because he keeps fighting at both 185 and 170 without really seemingly any kind of like commitment to either of them. And he's also just kind of a meme fighter. Like, it's, I don't know, like Kevin Holland could be really good. He has the physicality, the frame. He will show off some slickness and some good decision making from time to time. But at the end of the day, I just do not trust him, and I cannot matchmake for him as a result. Can't even commit to a division. Kayla Harrison versus Ketlin Vieira. This was not very good. I scored all 3 rounds for Harrison. It looked like there was one judge who scored a 29-28. Which round did he give the second round to Vieira? Let's see here. Do I think that there is a call for that at all? I guess. Yeah, that was the round where she didn't get taken down. Harrison went over 2. Got outlanded by terms of numbers anyways. Had 2 minutes of control. Yeah, okay, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with scoring it for Harrison. I'm not, questioning that either. At the end of the day, I think this fight was kind of what I was fearing about this, because everybody, the betting odds on this fight were insane. Anytime you're minus 1,000 plus in your second UFC fight against a ranked fighter, that smells wrong. I understand that Harrison has all the credentials and stuff, but Larissa Pacheco was able to beat her in PFL. And I don't want to oversimplify this. There is a lot of what allowed Pacheco to do that in Ketlin Vieira. And I'm not saying that just because they're larger Brazilian girls. I do mean she has the strength in the clinch. She has the takedown defense. She has some really clean punching when she sits down on it and actually doesn't immediately clinch afterwards. And that was the thing. I was she's going to end up in the clinch a lot with Harrison. She doesn't have the ability to deny that with her. She has to fight against type at altitude against a physically superior fighter. So I am picking her, and she did win. But there were just limitations to Harrison. She has a pretty non-existent striking game, is what it comes down to. So I've got Harrison against Pena because she should get the title shot. I've got Vieira against Eileen Perez. I knew I was calling for Eileen Perez versus Jacqueline Cavalcante. This is just, I guess, more up the rankings. And there are other things you can do with Cavalcante. So, yeah, let's go with that. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Joaquin Buckley. I said prime. Thompson would probably win this fight. I stand by that because he arguably won the first 2 rounds and then got clobbered and finished in the third. I did score the second for Buckley. He had a couple of takedowns. Not a lot of control time, but I just thought that his aggression and power shots were the better shots landed in that round. But Wonderboy did land more and did land a couple of nice Travis Brown's elbows to try to defend the takedown. Was able to work his his Wonderboy game essentially. If it's a Wonderboy fight. How he wins is pretty much the same every other time. Evasive, good long-range striking, etc., etc. Very fast. Still fast at 41. Oh, my God. And maybe it was the altitude that caught up with him. Maybe it's just age. Maybe it's just the relentless pressure of Buckley. Maybe it's also a little bit of the chin going, which I guess would be an age factor. But Buckley got the job done, called out Kamaru Usman, which is stupid. Again, stop calling out the old guys right after you beat one of the old guys. You get one. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. But please, no more Colby Covington runs where you're fighting exclusively people that look way better on your resume than they actually are at the time of the fight. So I've got him against, get ready for it, Jack Della Maddalena. They won't do it. But it is a fun fight idea. And I don't know. I still have a problem seeing JDM as a title contender. I've just never been able to make that leap with him. It won't happen in my brain. Maybe it should, but that's why I would have him in the Buckley range. But they'll probably do something more with him. Thompson versus MVP is the best idea I've got. They've both said that the fight is a bad idea and that it would be dull, and I agree. I think it would be dull. It's just I looked at the people around Thompson on the Tapology rankings. I looked at the people around Thompson on the UFC rankings. I just don't have anything. I don't. It's a bunch of guys who would probably just beat him on age. And I don't need to see that. I guess. I just don't. It doesn't tell me anything about them, and it doesn't tell me anything about Wonderboy. So I don't know. Do it. Do the karate, mirror match thing. Marina Rodriguez versus Jasmine Lucindo. I originally missed almost the entire first round, so I scored this for Rodriguez live, but with the note that like my stream screwed up in the first round. And I understand that like at the end of the first round, apparently it was 20-18 on strikes landed and 11-5 on significant strikes. But Rodriguez did hurt her bad enough, and I went back and watched the round. I still had that round for her. And then round 3, I also have with her. So I scored it for her. I don't hate Lucindo winning, but it is weird that she got outlanded in significant strikes in 2 rounds and in overall strikes in 1 round. Like, definitively lost the 3rd round, I thought, and still picked up the win here. That being said, Rodriguez made some, like, bad, like, just mental mistakes, like, specifically the takedowns. Like, she kept giving away clinch. I understand that she does good work for the tie clinch. I get that. But, like, it really kind of invited, like, Lucindo to get the body lock and get the takedowns, in which she, you know, did what people tend to do against Rodriguez because she has no ground game outside of cling. And you can get free time on top. Not a great fight. Split to Lucindo. Probably a good thing to have her win, even though I still think Rodriguez won the fight. But at the same time, like, Lucindo might be going places. She's just 22 years old. She really has a very bright future. I've got her against Amanda Lemos. I've got Rodriguez against the winner of Denise Gomes versus Carolina, Kovalkovich. And onwards to Alexander Hernandez versus Austin Hubbard. This was a weird split, a bad split. I don't necessarily have a problem with Hubbard winning on a card. I truly don't. But Chris Lee gave this a 30-27 scorecard, and I cannot co-sign that. The second round, to be honest, I thought the first round as well, but the first round at least had a lot of pressure, was Hernandez's. He was landing better shots than Hubbard and had kind of figured out how to handle like the constant pressure approach. Hubbard won the 3rd round, probably because just Hernandez faded. Although apparently Hernandez outlanded him in the 3rd round, so go figure. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's a closer round than I thought it was. But live, it really felt like Hubbard won that 3rd round. But like, he definitely lost the first 2, in my opinion. Maybe round 1 can go the other way. But like, Chris Lee, I complimented you before. I am taking that away because this 30-27 card for Hubbard was bad. I don't have a lot more to say about the fight. Like, coming into it, it was just like, I like Austin Hubbard. I think he tries to apply generally the correct ideas, and he did here, but he's not a good enough athlete to actually make it work at 155. And he's kind of just a Dana White Contender Series, like, welcome in. Now, I will pick at him a little bit. He started throwing like body kicks in the 3rd round, thrust kicks, spin kicks, etc. And those worked really well. And I'm kind of wondering where they were in the 1st and the 2nd round. So that's about it. Hernandez, I got against Elves Brenner. Ihor Pereira versus Cesar Almeida was not very good and like kind of damning of Almeida. Number one, this referee did a terrible job with the, with everything. He was breaking up clinches really, really early. He was not calling fouls. Don't get me wrong. None of Almeida's fouls were like grotesque or anything like that. The first one in particular was Ihor basically running eyeball first into his hand, which, that's your fault. But he did get kicked low. He did get poked like 5 times or something. Oh, by the way, Lucindo got like stopped for like apparently gouging with her chin in the eye, which is interesting. I'm not sure about the legality of that, but I imagine it's probably covered under eye gouging. But no, this ref sucked, and this fight sucked. And it's really kind of a problematic future endeavor for 36-year-old Cesar Almeida, who got taken down by Ihor Pereira, who does not take down anybody. So, yeah. He won the fight. I scored all 3 rounds for Almeida. What was the actual official scorecards on this one? 30-27 across the board, which I agree with. That was my card. But, not very good. And like for Almeida, what's next for him? That's a hard one. He's clearly wrestling deficient. He's 36 years old. Not really going to turn that around. So I put I penciled in Michael Oleksiejczuk as a step up guy who will probably bang with them. Uh, you could also just have him tread water against like Dana White Contender Series guys or like Robert Brychek or stuff like that who are, just strikers to try to get them to strike with him. His striking's very good, very exciting, but like this is 3 fights in a row in the UFC. Budka, Kopolov, and now this, where like it's very clear that like he can just be kind of made boring. Polteria, I have him sticking around to fight Contender Series guys because that's kind of all he's good for because dude's just not very good. But he is big, so he can welcome guys off the Contender Series who've been getting off on just like getting by, I should say. Not getting off. Getting by on just like size. So there you go. It's a purpose for him, but that's about it. Ovince St. Preux got choked out by Ryan Spawn, or well, tapped out. But anyways, I don't have much more to say about that. I will say the commentary was like trying to make a big deal about this. Like, oh, this is the Ryan Spawn we've been waiting for. No, this is the Ryan Spawn we always have. That if you just make mistakes and let him bonk you and then panic shoot him into wrestling, he'll take your neck. Like that's it. So I don't have much else to say. Spawn, I've got against the winner of Dustin Jacoby versus Vitor Petrino. I've got OSP against, I don't really care. He's 41 years old and he was never functional to begin with. I'm not saying he can't win fights. I'm just saying that, like, the fights he'll win are against either just deficient physical guys or guys who are just as broken as him. Fortunately, 205 is full of those, but I can't say that there's anything interesting for him. Carla Esparza versus Tisha Pennington. I scored this fight rounds 2 and round 3 for Pennington. I scored round 1 for Esparza. There was some talk about scoring round 3 for Esparza, which I do agree you could possibly get away with. You could possibly talk about that. But at the end of the day, significant strikes were 80-39, and total strikes were only 116-194 in favor of Esparza. Yeah, I mean, the first round is hers. She had 2 minutes, nearly 3 minutes of top control, which she did some things with. Second round was, I think, definitively Pennington's. Esparza got 2 takedowns, but could not hold her down. Pennington got up. She outlanded her by roughly double, both in significant strikes and in total strikes. Did her thing, was the damage dealer. Boom, that's her round. And then the third round was Pennington's pretty much throughout. And then in the last like 20 seconds, Esparza gets a takedown, starts landing some shots, lands a hellacious elbow near the end, really has this big moment to finish it off with. But like it was, it followed 4 minutes and 40 seconds of her getting kind of just worked. So like that's why I gave it to Pennington. If you gave it to Esparza, I'm not going to argue too much, but like the crowd reaction here was pretty bad. The crowd was booing, which is weird given that Pennington is the closest thing to a hometown fighter here. She was talking about breast cancer awareness, and she lost her, I think it was mom and grandmother to it. And it's like, why are you booing this? Anyways, Carla got a pretty tasteful, moment to say goodbye and like a video package. But again, I said this in the preview and I stay by it. This fight just got disrespected. I don't know why it was so, like, it was the second fight of the night on the early prelims. Why are we doing this? Why was this not more important than OSP Spawn? At least put it as the main event for the early prelims, or Poteria versus Almeida, or Hernandez versus Hubbard, or even Lucindo versus Rodriguez, which is in the same division. Probably 2 people rated lower. It shouldn't have been on the main card or anything, but I feel like it should have been. And in that case, just kind of move it to another card. Like, this is a 2-time champion. And people are like, is Carla Esparza a Hall of Famer? I'm like, she's a 2-time champion. Of course she is. I say all of this not being a big fan of hers. I thought she came off very badly on The Ultimate Fighter, and nothing she did after that ever, changed my thoughts on the matter. I feel like I got a accurate, display of her personality, and her fights are not amazing or anything. But like her accomplishments in women's MMA are huge. They're massive. at a very, very early day. We're I just don't know. I just don't know how that's even a conversation. I would have put this somewhere else. I've got Pennington against Loma Luke as a dope fight. Tim Means was kind of winning the striking stuff with Court McGee early on, but like Court McGee was starting to find his hands and then got a takedown and then neck cranked him from the rear. And apparently they only credit Means with having landed 5 significant strikes. I thought it was a lot higher than that. But anyways, good win for Court McGee. Hometown. Got an emotional post fight, but like it is a 40-year-old and a 39-year-old fighting in the welterweight division. It is what it is. Both of these guys, like my hope honestly was that both these guys would retire. As far as I know, they haven't. So matchmaking, Court McGee versus Jake Matthews is for some reason stuck in my brain. I don't know why. I cannot explain it. But like I saw those two names and went, huh, that would be fun. And I don't know. I legitimately don't know why. Tim Means versus Charles Radke would be the other one. That one I can actually explain. That would be like two guys who are going to largely throw hands and, have a fun action fight. And that's about it. So, and it's not too harsh on Mr. Means and his age. Well, I guess it is. Radke is pretty powerful, but like, I don't know. It feels like a fight that he could still probably win. And I do want to cheer for Tim Means going forward. But both of these guys should be, if not their next fight, then the door out should be considered for both guys. Anyways, I have a race to commentate on. I'm going to go do that. If you want to check that out, you can check out the Evolution Racing Academy YouTube channel. And you can hear me do solo commentary for 90 minutes. That's going to be a pain. That's going to be a thing. And on top of that, there is the usual links down below. Social medias, my Twitch, my gaming stuff over on YouTube, which has been pretty inactive, but like it's coming back. And on top of that, there is the Discord server for the Fight Simulator, which will be running a big card tonight. So there you go. Hope you had enjoyed one. Hope you enjoyed the card. It wasn't bad. It was just a little bit weird.